Southern Legend Outdoors Studio, the Be a Legend podcast. Brought to you from SouthernLegendOutdoors.com. And now your hosts, Kevin Barefield and Kerry Nelson. Heroes get remembered, but legends never die. It's your time now. Be a legend.
Well, good evening and thank you for joining our very first Be a Legend podcast, brought to you from Southern Legend Outdoors. Kevin Barefield here with Kerry Nelson, and we're coming to you from Pontotoc, Mississippi. Hey, Kerry, how's it going?
Going good, man. I'm excited. I appreciate you inviting me on board to be a part of Be a Legend podcast, our first podcast, and I'm excited about it.
Well, we're really excited that you committed to help us with this. This is something that has been in the works for several weeks now. We've been talking about it, and Brother Kerry, I should say, he is my brother-in-law, so he's my brother in other ways than just Brother Kerry, as so many people out there, so many of our followers will know him as Brother Kerry Nelson, and but we've been a different kind of brother for a long time, and so I love Brother Kerry. He's been a dear friend to me, as well as family, and so I knew when we first started talking about putting this podcast together that you were the man to help us co-host this on a bi-weekly basis. So really appreciate you doing that. We've got so many things we want to talk about with the Be a Legend podcast, and we want to tell you some things that we're really excited about the future of this podcast, and we've talked a little bit already about our relationship, and we think that's going to even complement more what we're trying to do here, because I can tell you that Brother Kerry has so many things to say and contribute from experiences that he's had. I've got to do this. I know I'm probably catching you a little off guard, but he asked me to come down and have dinner with him tonight, so we just showed up, and he cooked off the grill, made us a fine dinner, and I'm amazed that as many years as we've had a relationship, it never fails. Every time I'm with you, I hear a new story.
Yeah.
So I heard the funniest story, one of the best I think I have ever heard, and I don't think it'd be any better way to start this podcast than to you open up and to tell us this story. Kerry has a wonderful family, and of course they're my family as well, and we'll share family stories along the way in this podcast. But we were sitting at the table tonight, and you told me one of the funniest stories that I think I've ever heard on Eli, Kerry's youngest boy. Tell us about the night that Eli got arrested as a 6-year-old boy. What a funny story.
Well, it's good to bring Eli up because he's a big part of what we do with our hunting ministry. You know, we couldn't do it without Eli. Eli will be 19 in a few months, and so this was when he was 6-year-old. And I've pastored Grace Memorial Baptist Church for almost 23 years, and Eli was born once we moved to Moorville, Mississippi, and so I began the Moorville youth football program, and our oldest son Caleb, I had their teams out there practicing one day, and Eli was 6-year-old, and so of course, you know, older brother's practicing, daddy's coaching, so the 6-year-old's just getting a free run of the terrain, and he's out there playing with another 6-year-old, and so I wasn't paying any attention. I'm coaching, trying to figure out, you know, what to do with this little football team, and parents are everywhere, and we've got another group of teams that are practicing, and about the time a man and lady pulled up, and the lady got out of the truck, and I could hear the commotion coming toward me. I could hear people saying, that's him, run out there, and that's the man, run out there. So I knew that she was wanting to know who was over this football. And so when I turned around, a lady approached me and she said, I want to know whose kids are those. And she pointed out into the distance, and I looked out there, and there was Eli driving a little Barbie type battery operated Jeep with another 6-year-old in the Jeep with him. And when I turned, she was trying to figure out whose kid it was, and when I looked, actually was my kid driving this Jeep. And so needless to say, she was upset, and she began to question what we were doing out here. Was there not any parental guidance and supervision, and just really was giving me up and down, So I called Eli up there, and when she got up there, I explained to her that this is my son, and I'll take care of that. I apologize. She said, well, no, he's not just, he's just riding it. He come into my backyard, went into my shed, and he has stole this Jeep. And I said, well, if it's tore up, we'll fix it. What do you want me to do? And she said, well, I want to know what you're going to do about it. And really just adamant about not letting this ride. I mean, he's 6-year-old, and I'm going to discipline him over it. I apologize. Let's load the Jeep up and move on. But she couldn't do that. So I have 2 daughters, as you know, Kevin, and they were fixing to play a softball game, and I knew that the deputy sheriff always came. And so I just had his number in my phone, so I just called him, and I asked him, I said, where are you at? And he told me he was close, and I said, well, I want you to come down here. And, of course, I had walked off, and I said, I want you to come down here. And I said, don't crack a smile. You just follow my lead. Well, not only did he come down there, he topped the hill, had his lights on, siren on, come down to the football practice, got out of the vehicle, and I said to him, I want you to arrest that young man, and this lady is pressing charges. And, buddy, he went over there, he read Eli's rights, he cuffed him, put him in the back seat of the car, shut the door, and needless to say, the lady was not happy with me.
No, I bet she wasn't.
So anyway, she loaded up her Jeep and went home. Eli did not have to go to prison, and that's been one of the funny. I get asked about that story around Morville as much as anything, and Eli gets asked about it. They'll say, Eli, tell us about the day that you got arrested when you were 6-year-old. So, Kevin, one thing about this podcast that I'm excited about is, there's no script. We're going to be who we are. Yeah. That's kind of how I started my hunting ministry. Yeah. Is real hunting. No make-believe stuff, no trick cameras, no nothing. I mean, it's just real hunting. It's misses, it's hits, it's tracking, it's ups and downs of hunting. It's just real life hunting, and that's why I'm excited about being a part of Be a Legend podcast, because what the listeners are going to hear is real life. It's no made up stuff. We're not trying to impress. It's just who we are, and I love being around people like you that's like that. And I know that's one reason you brought me on, because, I'm just going, if you can tell the first story you tell is about having your 6-year-old arrested, I'm pretty sure the rest is going to be easy.
Well, we have our share of stories we could tell, Kerry and I, and you have to forgive me. I'll always want to say Brother Kerry, but we have had so many different types of aspects of our relationship have ventured into different parts of our life beyond ministry. We coached together for 5 years at Blue Mountain College. We both coached the softball program. We started that program together, and we had some great years there. And of course, I've continued. I still today work at Blue Mountain College full-time for my full-time job, but those are some years that I will treasure for the rest of my life, that we spent some great times together and a lot of great stories, and I'm sure many of those we'll get the opportunity to share on this podcast. But I know that our listeners will enjoy this. I told Kerry before we ever started this, I said, you're going to be the voice of this show. I really believe, because he's a great orator, and he's the kind of person that I can just sit down and listen to for hours, So again, I want to thank you for being a part of this. I know it's taken time out of your personal time, And what we're trying to do here, I think we're going to talk about that here in a few minutes, some of the things that we're going to try to achieve through this podcast. But we want to talk to you a little bit and tell you a little bit about the history and where this started. About 5 months now in the working as a result of just spending some time outdoors and thinking about, communication and networking and outdoors, spending time outdoors, especially now that I have boys, and you can relate to that, how that's become a passion. And it's become a refuge for me, actually, even in many ways, to maybe a refuge from some of the difficulties and the trials that life will throw you. And to know that you can go outdoors and you can get in that deer stand or that duck blind and you can just kind of forget your problems for a day, and you can get some alone time, maybe with you and your son or your daughter, and most importantly, some time with the Lord. And I know you've experienced that as well.
Yes. Well, and raising 4 kids, and all of them love the outdoors. We began with our oldest daughter, who she'd rather be outside than be inside. I never will forget when I first had our daughters, my question was, what do I do with them? I mean, I was thinking, well, they can't hunt, they can't play ball, they can't get dirty. What do you do with them? And very quickly I realized that they could hunt and they could play ball and they love to get dirty.
Yeah.
So, for Lakin, my oldest daughter, she killed her first deer and busted the scope, hit her between the eyes, and we left the woods and went straight to the emergency room, which is a great story for a later date.
Yeah.
But that's how we got started, taking girls. Yeah. And a lot of times men think that, they got to have that son to pass down the traditions maybe their father or grandfather passed on. But you'll find a lot of daughters that love to hunt as much, if not more, than a son. And that was the case with me.
Yeah.
And so then our sons came along, and our girls loved to be outside, and our sons loved to be outside. And then, of course, we ended having children with Eli, and nobody'd rather be in the woods anymore than Eli. And so I think what we're doing here with Be a Legend podcast and all the time that Kevin you've put into this, and not only the time but the finances and the brain work behind it, all the thoughts, is great, because we're going to talk as people and to people that are just everyday hunters and everyday people. And you made a comment about Blue Mountain, your full-time job. Very few people get to full-time hunt.
Right.
We have to work so
That's
we
true.
can hunt.
That's true.
And, and then with everything else that our families are involved in, when we do get away, I mean, what a great point you made about spending some quality time, alone time with your children, with your family. And then there's times where you get off by yourself. Right. And, you get to really, it's a good time to check up. Paul talked about examine yourself. And boy, sometimes hunting, you get to examine yourself, look into yourself.
That's right.
And I found that alone time, because you're in the Lord's world. Yeah. It's the world He made. It's the nature that He created for us. And to hear His sounds early in the morning and late in the evening reminds you that this world's not our own. We're just passing through. And so I think it's a great, what's went in behind the closed doors to get this going. First of all, I want to thank you. I'm just a part of this. I'm thankful to be a part of it, but I appreciate your desire and your goals with this, and I pray God to give you the desires of your heart.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And that's truly what it is. And as we're talking about the history here, it's going to be real easy for us to tell stories and to share, and as we think about our own experiences in life. And that's part of what we want to be able to do is let this be an experience sharing opportunity for us and for others out there as well as we go throughout this podcast. We do want to say a little bit about some of the pieces that are going to be very critical in being able to make this a success. We want to promote and say a little bit about our website. It's southernlegendoutdoors.com. And we want to make sure that you go out there, take a look at our webpage. We're going to have a lot of images from the upcoming season. We already have quite a bit out there from some past seasons. We will also have access and links to our podcast. We're going to have other aspects of the Be a Legend, Southern Legend Outdoors ministry forthcoming. That's really not all together yet, but we're looking forward to putting that out there. One of the things that we'll have out there as well will be our DVDs that Brother Kerry will be putting together with his By His Grace Outdoor Productions, and we're going to talk a little bit about that here in a few minutes. But we do want to draw attention again to the website. We want you to go out there and take a look at that. Also, our social media, Facebook. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/Southern Legend Outdoors. We've got a group. Once you go to that page, you can join the group, and from the group, you will actually be able to have the capability to contribute to the ministry and to this opportunity for us to share information. We have a Twitter account. It's twitter.com/S Legend Outdoors. We have an Instagram page. Look us up on Instagram. Basically, if you'll do a search for Southern Legend Outdoors on any of these media outlets, you're going to find access to our pages. But we've talked a little bit about the future. Talked a little bit about our podcast coming up and youth hunts. That's going to be a really big deal. And I wanted Kerry to say a little bit about that because he has such an experience in that area. He's already put together, I don't know how many, many, probably countless youth hunts. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about that youth hunt ministry that you have and what you've done, and tell our viewers about what you're trying to do and how God's using that ministry.
Well, we started 18 years ago with taking our own kids. It's where it was birthed from. Mm-hmm. And then we just got, from even within our church to other people that we were close to, being involved in the youth activities and sports at the school where my kids attended at the time, the community. And you just got to noticing, what a lot of people think sometimes about taking a kid hunting is taking an underprivileged kid, maybe a kid that don't have a father or a kid that don't have a great home life. And that's great because we do that too. We any kid we'll take. But what I also found is there's some kids that their fathers are in their life and they're great men, great Christian men.
Right.
But hunting's not what they grew up doing. Mm-hmm. Maybe they grew up playing ball, or maybe they grew up fishing. There's a lot of kids that want to go hunting, and daddy is a fisherman. So it's not that the kid, don't have good parents or a good home life. It's just that's not something anybody in the family does. Right. And you know this as well as anybody that hunting a lot of times is a traditional. It's passed down. A lot of times kids that hunt a lot, they hunt because they were taken a lot by a parent that hunted that was taken a lot by another parent, and and it's just a tradition. So with our youth hunts, it's not, I don't want people to think that it's just, the only way that Brother Kerry and them would be involved in a youth hunt would be if this kid has no chance or he has no opportunity. And that's not the case. We take a lot of kids and their parents. What we do with our youth hunt, that our thrust of it is not only taking them on a great youth hunt, but to capture it with video. So they'll always have that memory. Mm-hmm. And so that's been a driving force of By His Grace Outdoors with youth hunts, is to capture the time that's spent with that guardian. And sometimes it's a grandparent, sometimes it's a mother, sometimes it's a father, sometimes it's an uncle. It's just whoever that kid is attached to by guardianship. Mm-hmm. And it's just been amazing. Our youth hunts have really grown, and we have a lot of great help We have a lot of great places to take kids.
Yeah.
And so that's what we do with our youth hunt. And something I would say right here so we don't forget is taking a kid hunting. And we're a little different than some because some, still put the specifications and the restrictions on kids. The state of Mississippi is okay with a kid firing the gun 15 and under, and so is By His Grace Outdoors. Take them out there and let them get a kill.
That's right.
Let them enjoy. You say, well, do they have to have a certain size? This is real hunting. We eat what we kill. And so we take if they've got choice of a better deer out in the field, well, certainly we're going to try to let them.
Sure.
But I got news for you. We take a kid hunting. We want them to enjoy it. And enjoying a hunt, and there's no other better way to enjoy it than to bring something back with you.
That's right.
And so we have a great time, and our youth hunts is a big part of what we do.
That's great. And we really, we talked about this when we kind of started putting this together and how we really want to have an emphasis on youth. I think being a dad, from my standpoint, from you as well, becomes such a high priority in our life that we begin to see down the road. For
Right.
that kid, it may just be a hunt, but for you and I as a father, we see a life experience. We see a memory. We see something that could be treasured for many years down the road. And I know we've got some great stories to tell. The best stories are being told on your DVD, and we're going to talk about that here shortly because I want you to say some things about a couple of the hunts on the DVD to kind of promote the DVD. And we're not here. We want to make sure our listeners know we're not here trying to promote me or to promote you or to promote the DVD per se, but these are experiences that we know can be life-changing experiences for these young men, for these young ladies, for youth. And I think we would both say we have a passion and a burden for our youth and our world today. I don't know anybody in the area that has more of a passion for youth than the man I'm looking at right now because of a youth camp that he puts on at his church, Grace Memorial Baptist Church, and they put on a tremendous youth camp. And how many kids did y'all have this year at your youth camp?
We had 400 kids again this year.
So that's outstanding. I don't know any church around in this area. They may go to a camp somewhere and send their kids to a camp that's producing those kind of numbers, but I don't know anyone in North Mississippi that puts together a camp like that. So we do want to promote things like that because we know those kinds of things are where lives are changed. And so I want to thank you for what you're doing there for that and what you're doing for youth in our area. And I know that that's a passion for you. And that's what it's about. Someone asked me the other day, they said, what is this about? What are you doing with this? And I said, to be honest with you, I really don't know. I said, I do not really know. I know we're going to have a podcast. We're going to share some stories, and we're going to tell, tell of some experiences that we've had, but we want to be flexible to just let this be what God wants it to be.
Sure.
And we love the outdoors, and we've talked about even scripture, even tonight before we got started, and talked about Colossians 3:23, and it says, "And whatsoever ye do, do it heartily, as to the Lord and not unto men."
Right.
And I've tried to. I've done a miserable job, I have to admit, of applying that in my life. I have, but I think our heart would be today that whatever comes out of this, we want God to get the glory and praise, and it's going to be all about outdoors. That's what it's going to be about. And as we enter into the season, we're gonna have some episodes where we're gonna really get into in-depth outdoors, food plot management. We're going to talk about really a lot of technical components to the outdoors and hunting, and I'm excited about that. But more importantly, I think making sure that we stay focused on the things that are really important in life will be critical to our mission and what we're trying to do here through Southern Legend Outdoors and the Be a Legend podcast.
Well, and if you're going to enjoy creation, it won't take you long to realize there was a creator. And that's we love the Lord Jesus with all our heart, and my life verse, and some people don't like to hear the term life verse. There are some verses that stick to us different than other verses. And boy, I've always looked at 1 Corinthians 15:10, where Paul says, I am what I am by the grace of God. Mm-hmm. And that's where By His Grace Outdoors got its name. That's our verse for our ministry. And you can't be outdoors long, I don't care who you are, not realize you didn't create it.
That's right.
And there is a creator. And so we celebrate the creator while we enjoy his creation.
That's right.
And he gave us these outdoors. Mm-hmm. He gave us all of the woods and those creatures in the woods. And boy, I'll tell you, we really love living off memories. I think all of us, as you wrote, and I encourage everyone to go out to Be a Legend, the Facebook, Southern Legend Outdoors, and Kevin had put a post out there a few days back, and what a great post it was about the men that was instrumental in his life. And I think we all have that. I think we live off of memories, and we live to make memories. Mm-hmm. And and here's the thing: you can't get stuck on the memories you made, and you can't try to make more. It's a joint effort in our life that we remember where we came from, and we go out and make a difference in people's life.
Right.
And so with By His Grace Outdoors and Be a Legend, Southern Legend, it's going to be two men that is trying to share what we are and help others become what they can be.
That's right.
And this is such a, you said a while ago about me taking my time, but this is such a joy to me because I love this. I was raised in the outdoors, and for 18 years we've had this ministry, and we didn't even know, you said a while ago that you didn't know really where this was headed. You just know God put it on your heart. And I'm telling you, man, I started this, you just look up in 5 years, you've been doing filming hunts. You didn't really get into it for any other reason. You just want to be a blessing.
Right.
You wanted to take some people hunting that may not ever have the opportunity, from kids to teenagers to handicapped, veterans, preachers and pastors, and that's another show for another day. But you look up one day and you are right off in the middle of something, and it wasn't that you had a plan or a purpose in it. You just had a submission to it.
That's right.
And you said, Lord, this is what you want me to do? Because if the Lord showed us everything right off the bat, we'd be so fearful we'd never take a step.
That's right.
And so He just wants us to do it. And so I appreciate you doing this, because now we're going to be, if there's just one child, one man, one lady, one girl out there that listens to this podcast, and it can point them to the Lord Jesus, it's worth everything we do.
That's right. That's right. Well, you've mentioned, and we've hit on it several times already, but your By His Grace Productions, By His Grace Outdoors. Say a little bit about how that got started, and really, I guess, talking more about that particular ministry. And I know I'll go ahead and jump in here and say, I know you've just released a new DVD. It's now available for purchase, and through our website, you can purchase that DVD by going to southernlegendoutdoors.com, and you can purchase that DVD on there. And Brother Kerry, I send you that in the mail, get that in the mail to you. So we're really excited about that opportunity. So say a little bit about that and what God's doing with that DVD and that ministry.
Well, we've got years of footage that we've accumulated, and we've talked about it, you know.
Yeah.
In the last 8 years, By His Grace Outdoors has really grown with properties, people, trying to take as many as we can. And, of course, with anything like that, then you're going to have an increase in expenses and all of that. And so we have never charged for any hunt, never one time charged anybody to come hunt, and we don't take donations. And so one of the ways that I thought of generating some income to help with By His Grace Outdoors ministry is the only way I would take anything from you is to give you something in return.
Yeah.
And so what better way than give you 2 hours of great hunts. We've got 9 hunts on our first DVD. I think it's 1 hour and 58 minutes, 2 hours. The DVD scene selected, so you can jump around, watch your favorite hunt after you watch them. We've got anything from 7-year-old killing his first turkey to we've got Richard Stafford Jr., who a lot of people know very well, who was injured drinking and driving, and he's in our church, and we have the privilege of hanging out with him a lot of days. And we've got 2 hunts of him. One's a turkey hunt, one's a big buck in Alabama.
Yeah, and that hunt is amazing.
It's worth $20.
It is
just to watch that hunt.
It really is.
And that's what our DVD is $20. And every dime, all the proceeds from this will go back into our land leases, our food, our accommodations, all the way to, we told everybody when we decided to do the DVD that this money that is raised from this DVD, we want it to go back in and cover what's going on and then expand it.
Mm-hmm.
We would love opening day of Youth Hunt to be able to take as many young kids as we can and be able to carry a camera to film them. Yeah. And the Lord's blessed us. We've got several really good camera. We got some good equipment now. But I'd love to be able to take 20 kids at one time.
Yeah.
And so the DVD sales will go toward that. And it's as we said, it's 9 hunts. It's all turkey and deer. And we're looking forward to next year. We've already talked about doing maybe a duck hunt.
Yeah.
And we're going to run that through Be a Legend and Southern Legend Outdoors. We're going to run that through you. And then we also have been hit up since we brought the DVD out on the market. We've had several people hit us up, professional fishing guide men, to say, bring a kid and let's film them going on their first fishing trip.
Yeah.
That's not just fishing off the bank in the backyard.
Sure.
And so one guide hit me up in Texas the other day about bringing a kid out there. So we're looking forward to, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to expand this to where it can be as big as it possibly can, and we can affect as many people as we can. And I'll assure you, the people that help with By His Grace Outdoors, and if you don't mind, I'll say this right here, we don't allow anybody to help with By His Grace Outdoors that's selfish. If you're selfish, we can't use you. And this land that we lease and the shooting houses that we build and the food that we cook, it's all for others. And our whole purpose is being a blessing to others. And so our group of people that help with this are tremendous people. They're out for the other man or the other child. And so that's By His Grace Outdoors. Just got started for other people. And
we hope through this podcast that it will open up even more opportunities. Maybe there's a listener out there that has access to help us expand this into a whole different region, a different area that can be an extension of what you're doing here. I mean, to be honest, there was a day and time when you and I first started in videography, and we were doing video hunts, and my start with videography was more in a different aspect than the hunting. But when we first started this, we certainly didn't have the technology that we have today.
no.
I know that there are cases out there. I mean, we have better technology in our cell phones today than we did in $3,000 cameras 5 years ago. So those kinds of things can be captured, and we want to try to capture those moments as a part of Southern Legend Outdoors, and you guys be able to have that opportunity to share those experiences. That's why we want to get everyone joining the groups.
Sure.
Joining the group and be a part of the group and start sharing those stories.
And there may be someone listening that has access to land, and they know of a kid in their community that maybe this podcast will help encourage you. You don't have to do anything through Southern Legend or By His Grace
That's right.
Outdoors. Maybe you've thought about a kid up the road, or maybe your child goes to school and your kid gets to hunt.
Right.
That's what it birthed in me. My children were going to get to hunt because they had grandparents that hunted, uncles that hunted, their daddy hunted, and they were going to get to go. And it birthed in me to take some kids that may not ever get to go.
Yeah.
And maybe somebody's listening to this, and you may be hundreds of miles from us and may never meet us in person or know anything about us, but you could make an impact in your community,
Right.
and help take a child hunting that may never get the opportunity. And this is for you to step up,
Yeah.
to do that.
That's right.
And then you may know someone close to us that we could reach out to that we would never know unless you let us know about them, and that could become part of By His Grace Outdoors to take a kid on youth weekend. We would love to hear from you, feedback. This is not something we want people to abuse. This is a ministry,
Right.
and sometimes you get I was laughing. I know some preachers that would get involved in this just so they can find them a good spot to hunt.
Yeah.
They're not bad people, but
No.
their goal is they really want to find them a good spot to get that big deer. This is not what
that's
we
not
are.
What this
And
is about. Yeah.
we had rather see a child, someone in a wheelchair, one of our men or women that served our country and give us this freedom that we have, a man of God that may have been struggling where he's pastoring, get to come in for a weekend just to rest.
Yeah.
And we'd rather film them. We get more excitement out of filming them than we would us killing it ourselves. That's the ministry that we have through Southern Legend Outdoors, By His Grace Outdoors. That's why we team so well.
Yeah.
We have the same desires and the same motives for what
Yeah.
we do. And anybody that's been around By His Grace Outdoors for 18 years knows how this is an unselfish ministry. This is about other people. And, this is a great opportunity for all the ones that's ever helped us. Me and Kevin are brother-in-laws, and our father-in-law was the first person that allowed me to come on his property and film a kid hunting. And then our brother-in-law, Ken Butler, allowed me one youth weekend. Bill Rutledge, which is our father-in-law, and Ken Butler, who is our brother-in-law, my first big youth weekend was on some of their properties.
Yeah.
And this thing goes back, there's so many people that's involved.
Yeah.
But one key thing is we're not selfish.
That's right.
And how could we be selfish if something we didn't create? These are the Lord's.
It's not ours to begin with.
It's not ours to begin with.
That's right.
And so I know that's a little rambling
Sure.
right there, but the point is, this podcast is for anybody listening, and to get involved where you're at. You don't have to get involved with us. You may never be able to do that geographically.
Right.
But where you're at, because this can go out throughout all the United States. And you may be in South Dakota, and there's no way you could get to Mississippi. Well, be a legend there.
That's right.
Be a legend there.
Yeah, and I think the key thing that you're saying there is that it's not a selfish ministry. It's not about, as we've said already, it's not about you or me or Southern Legend Outdoors. And I think that leads into one of the things that I wanted to make sure that we clarify through this, because I think someone out there who's casually browsing the internet and they see this, or they see a statement, or they hear about the podcast called Be a Legend, and in the world we live in today, it's all about a me society. It's about what I can do, how I can achieve greatness, what success I can achieve in life. And I want to make sure that our listeners understand, and those that join our group understand, that when we talk about Be a Legend, or when we're talking about Southern Legend Outdoors, that word legend could be very easily misrepresented.
Sure.
This is not about you becoming legendary in the sense of achievement, success, and greatness in your life. It's not to glorify you. It's not, and when I say that, I'm saying in the third person, me or anyone else that's out there that's listening. But we want to try to motivate, in particular, men, fathers, husbands out there, to take an approach in life that they want to be the right kind of legends for their children and their children's children and their children's children's children,
right.
their great grandchildren, and that they want to make a difference. Because as you mentioned earlier, we talked about, in some of my greatest moments, some of the memories that I have in my life, again, as we go back and we think about some of the hunts you've hosted, for us, many times we'll think it's just a hunt. But for that kid, it may be much more than that. And my grandfather was Charlie Hale, grew up and lived in the hurricane community here in Pontotoc, and was a great man and served the Lord and loved God. And,
sure.
And his passion, he had two passions really, and those passions have become passions of mine as well. But baseball and bird hunting. He loved to quail hunt, and he loved the St. Louis Cardinals and baseball. And those are memories that I treasure. Those things are ingrained in me. We love sports, and we're going to talk about sports along the way because we're diehard Ole Miss fans. Let's go ahead, set the record straight here.
Let's get that out there.
That we're diehard Ole Miss fans. So there will be some state trashing going on.
Yeah, and we're not opposed to having a state fan on here. We just won't allow you to say much.
That's right. But I think about my granddad, and he died several years ago, but I was able to grow into a young man while he was still alive, and enough so to come to respect him and to love him, and I love him more today than I know I should have even then.
Right.
And I wish I could have some of those times back, but I wouldn't trade anything for the memories. Going to St. Louis and spending time with him at a baseball game. Someone asked me the other day, said, if you could go back and do anything, what would you go back and do? I said, I think I just would want to go sit down with him and talk and just listen and ask him some questions. I think I began to understand that right before he died and started really understanding the importance of a godly heritage and a grandfather and parents that love you. And I guess that's just a part of life. As you grow older, you begin to understand that importance. And for me, he is a legend.
Right.
He may not be a legend to you. He may not be a legend to many other people out there, but he's a legend to me. And he's the kind of person that God put in my life. I'm not trying to glorify man here, but God does use men.
Yes, he does.
And he puts men and people in our life to affect us.
Right.
And to mold us and to make us into what he wants us to be. Certainly we are to pattern our life, not after men, after what God has commanded, but I'm thankful for the men that God put in my life. I mentioned in my Facebook post, so many times today, our young men may be more focused on a person like LeBron James or Justin Bieber.
Superstar.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's garbage.
Yeah.
Let's just go ahead and establish who we are on this podcast. So if you're offended by the fact that we're going to tell you and we're going to say things like that, then you're probably not going to fit well in our circle, because that's not what we're about here. We're not about those guys who are out there trying to make millions of dollars off of their fame and their glory from our young kids. And I get a little aggravated. I get a little passionate about that. But it's the world we're living in, and we want to make a difference and motivate men. And I know you've got people in your life the same way. And Brother Kerry lost his dad a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. We talked about that earlier and the impact that he made, not only in his life, but so many others.
Well, most legends, as we use that word in our name, are people that you never meet. When you think about somebody that's left a legacy, the very word legend is someone who's admired, somebody that's much talked about, somebody that what they left behind is passed on for generations. Well, in your era, if you want to go with a superstar or sports star, we would talk about a Jordan or Larry Bird in basketball. Right. We would talk about a different one in football. Go back to the Terry Bradshaw. I'm a little older than you, but the Steelers and the Cowboys of that
Yeah.
day. But and no doubt these men left a mark in our life because we were remembering them in that superstar, but they're not everyday men. I've never met them. I don't know them.
Right.
What we're trying to do, like you said, is there's most of the audience, the first time they've ever heard the word Charlie Hale was when you uttered it, because nobody knew him like you knew him.
Right.
And we'll make a difference in people's life, only those that know us.
Yeah.
And my name will never, though song is, my name will never be in lights, and very few people ever know who I was.
Right.
But the ones that do know me, and the ones that I do have the opportunity to make a difference in, that's the legend we're talking about, not to be misunderstood.
Sure.
We're talking about being a real person to real people, and it'll last. I thought about what Paul said in 1 Corinthians 11, verse 2. He said, "Now I praise you, brethren." And the Apostle Paul was praising the brethren for what they had done and how that they had lived.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with giving man his praise. It's always under the umbrella of why he is what he is. We are what we are because God has done such a work of grace in us.
Right.
And I can see God's gifts flowing through you, and you can see them flow. So we praise each other based on how God has brought us.
Yeah.
In this Southern Legend outdoors and be a legend, the whole thought of that is to step up and be the person. I was preaching the other day, and I told our congregation the other Wednesday night, somebody maybe didn't have a great upbringing. That can't be your reason for not being a great man today.
That's right.
You ought to be more motivated to be the great father that you didn't have. And I was preaching along those lines.
Right.
And I made the comment, there's just sometimes you got to pull your bootstraps up. My actual words was, you got to take your pacifier out your mouth and man up, because you can't become what you hated you didn't have. Mm-hmm. Make a difference, make a change. That's what this podcast's about, is that we would affect these children and affect these people around us. And we're using the outdoors as a platform because that's what we love.
That's right.
You may be listening to this and could care less about the outdoors. We want you to know, be a legend. Be someone that Brother Sammy Montgomery, a friend of ours, you
Right.
remember Brother Sammy. The last message I heard Brother Sammy preach, he preached a message on live as to be missed. And he said, I hope and pray that when I'm gone, that my family can live off the memories. That he had made such an impact. That's exactly what you're saying about your grandfather. That's what that's what you're saying about my father. I'm living today. I say things today that my daddy said to me. When he said them to me, I thought, why did he say that? Now I'm saying the same things he's saying.
Yeah.
And those are real legends to us.
Right.
And, I'm sure if I met a LeBron James, or if I met a Michael Jordan, or if I met a Babe Ruth, so to speak, a famous, we'd be in awe of that presence. Here's this soup. But that may be a 5-second deal, and it never happened again.
That's right.
Real legends are everyday men.
That's right.
And that's what we want to do here.
That's a great point. Well, we kind of want to wrap up on this session here. I think we have been able to at least give you guys a great introduction to what we're doing.
Right.
And we're really excited about it, and we hope you are too.
Tell us about some of the upcoming shows.
Yeah,
that's something that before we stop, because they're probably wondering, hey, is it just going to be us every time? No,
it's not. And we already have a guest list already in play here. And again, we're it's going to be covering a variety of topics, and particularly pertaining to the outdoors. I'm sure the week after Egg Bowl weekend, we'll have some other conversation to talk about.
I guess being Ole Miss fans, we would have to the week after at least have, if we go down, we'd have to have a state hunter. He's got to be a hunter though.
Yeah,
that way
right.
we can divert. If they beat us, we could jump back to hunting real quick.
Right.
Can we make that deal? Yeah. And I think any state guy that had started a podcast would feel the same way if he's really a state guy.
He probably would.
So
he'll definitely be in the minority. in the room.
And it definitely will not be Richard Stafford Jr. He will not be allowed in the studio.
Though we will have Richard. So many of you out there know Richard Stafford. He Jr. has had a tremendous impact in our community. And so we're going to have him lined up for a podcast.
And he's a great outdoorsman.
Is an outstanding outdoorsman. Again, get the video and see that hunt. It's well worth the investment into the ministry, and to also get a piece of that treasured memory. I know that Brother Kerry and Richard have together on that DVD. We're also going to have Mark Newell. Mark is a representative. He's on the pro staff of Tecumate Seed Company.
Yes.
And I can just listen to Brother Mark talk because you're going to gain so much knowledge about, just land management, even beyond food plot management. I had him to come up to our property that we have there in Tippah County, and he could just scan over my property and say, you need to do this here, you need to do that there to just manage your property better. So
that's a state guy, by the way.
Yeah, by the way,
we may have to have him on.
We'll have to make sure. Yeah, but he is he's a dear friend of both of us as well.
I'll be with him tomorrow.
Awesome.
We're going to look at land tomorrow.
Great.
So great guy.
So he'll be on the podcast. We've got Reed Clark. Reed is a close friend of mine back in the Tippah County area, and Reed is an avid duck hunter and deer hunter. He is he's on the pro staff of Echo Duck Calls and several other accolades that I could say about Reed.
Yes.
But he will be talking. Reed's another one of those guys that I can just sit on the phone and I can get on the phone and say, hey, Reed, just start talking to me about duck hunting, because I'm still a little bit of a babe in the duck hunting sport. So I love to hear those guys talk about duck hunting. And then our brother-in-law, Ken Butler, who has done an outstanding job of property management as well, and food plot management, and he is a great outdoorsman as well. And Ken was a little bit a part of this on the front end.
He was.
In helping us kind of advise and tell us some things that he thought would help us in this ministry and this outdoor podcast. So we're going to have Ken on as well. We have a lot of others.
Hope Outdoors, Opie Thomas. I spoke with Opie about coming on, sharing what they do with Hope Outdoors. Tremendous group of people. They've got a ministry that is second to none. Brother Jody Harrison, dear friend of mine from Asheboro, North Carolina.
Yep.
You can follow Brother Jody on Facebook. Preacher Man Turkey Calls.
Yep.
The Cluck Commander, and he is
one of a kind.
He's one of a kind. He's not only a dear friend of mine, and not only a great turkey hunter and turkey call builder, but he is an outstanding preacher. And I'll tell you, if matter of fact, I'll say this on the podcast: if you men out there, you preachers, or you men are part of a wild game supper and you're looking for someone to come in and speak, I've heard Mark Newell speak at wild game suppers. Brother Jody Harrison has a message on the turkey, on the wild turkey, compares it to the life of men that is second to none. And so just a great guy, Brother Jody. We'll have him on. And then Ray Cobb, friend of mine from Lawrenceburg, Tennessee. We're going to do a podcast with Ray. Ray raises fallow deer and pheasants. And the church, actually, Brother Chad Clanton is the pastor of Gum Springs Baptist Church. He's a dear friend of your father's, Brother Ronnie Barefield. And that whole church, we're going to try to set it up somehow or another to do a podcast with several of those men. They are just, their church is just an outreach in so many directions, and these are outdoorsmen, and they have so much going on, and we're going to work that out as well. And others, that we'll be getting to come on the podcast to give everybody a break from just listening to us.
Yeah.
But we want to be informative. We want to be real. And we want to encourage and excite somebody listening to get out there and make a difference.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Kerry. I really appreciate you taking the time this evening.
Enjoyed it.
And we look forward to these upcoming podcasts. And you guys stay tuned. Go to our website. We will say that we're going to be on Podbean. That's an app that you can download on your phone. But we will have all the details on our website, on our Facebook page. We'll create links out there. So we're really excited about it. Thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to our next podcast with you.
Thank you. I
Good
enjoyed
night.
it.
Heroes get remembered, but legends never die. It's your time now. Be a legend.